Hey, how's it going, folks? This is Hellbent, and welcome to AutoHotkey tutorial number blah, blah, blah. I have no idea which number we're on. Today I have a special guest, Joe Glines. Joe Glines, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Joe Glines. I'm out of Dallas, and Hellbent and I, we've done a couple videos together. We both work with AutoHotkey in very different areas, but it's fun to have someone to bounce ideas around and stuff. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so if you don't know, I was supposed to actually post a video a little while ago saying that Joe and I had done a video back in January and to direct you to it. So I'll do that now. Back in January, Joe and I had done a compilation, collaboration where we went over, what do we do? Simple
Objects.
arrays and
Yeah.
and associative arrays.
Yeah.
We spent about an hour and a half discussing different things, everything about it. We actually learned some things while we were doing that.
Yeah.
Not just you, but me. And so in this one, what we're going to be looking at is the if directive, or context-sensitive hotkeys and hotstrings, and how you can go about using them in your script. So I guess the first...
Sorry, I was going to add in there sorry, and I'm sorry to interrupt. But maybe you were going to start with this, but I don't think a lot of people probably don't understand what in the world a directive even is.
I don't either. That's the language that I seen.
But you know what it is. Like, it has a pound sign, right?
Yes.
It starts with the pound sign. I agree. I tried Googling it like a week ago because I'm like, what is a direct? Like, what does that mean? And like, I couldn't find anything that explained what it actually meant.
Yeah, I don't remember if I looked it up specifically on that, but it's something. It is a term that I've seen before. So, when I can, I try to include the terminology. But normally, I don't really care about the terminology. I'll just call it Bob.
Because I know you programmed in what, in C# or
C.
C. Okay.
C. Yeah.
Is there any reference in
There's some things that you do like that, like you can do definitions and things like that. Sure. But C is a pretty old language.
Oh, yeah.
And doesn't have a lot of the capabilities that the newer languages have. When I did C, everything was all in the console. Basically, it was DOS.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Right. So we're gonna look at the if directive, or context-sensitive hotkeys and hotstrings, and what this is the ability to take a hotkey and make it so that way it's only activated if a certain condition is met. So you can use the same hotkey for multiple things. So let's take an example of a program. You have a program running, a window running. If a certain window is active and you have hotkeys that are specifically written to only work when that window is active, if that window isn't active, that hotkey will not work. So what you can do is actually use the same hotkey over and over and over again, just setting it up with different directives. Now, I don't use hotkeys a lot. Actually, I hate using hotkeys. For anyone that knows me, I use pretty much escape, control escape, and a couple of the number pad hotkeys. Joe, on the other hand, uses hotkeys a lot. So he's going to be guiding me through it. He knows how to use it a lot more than I do. Now, Joe, would you say that you use it on a fairly regular basis?
Well, they're built into my script, so yes. Right.
Now, I know you do use HotStrings a lot. Do you have like a master, or perhaps like a couple of scripts that are written just for HotStrings and that?
Not just for them, no. They're blended in with my main AutoHotkey script is over 2,000 lines long, and it has hundreds upon hundreds of hotstrings, and then dozens upon dozens of hotkeys. Some of which on each of those are context sensitive. And then I have a couple other scripts that are running all the time also that I have hotkeys and hotstrings in.
Yeah, that's why I try to stay away from the hotkeys and hotstrings, because I can never remember them. And I always end up having conflicts.
So I googled a different question this time, and I saw this answer, and I just thought let's offer it up here for people. So directives, it says, are processed, either parsed or processed before the script starts running. So that actually is an interesting concept to be aware of, is like, hey, things with the pound sign, and it's anything with the pound sign. Like, so your first line here, single instance force, right? Single instance is a directive, right? And that gets run before, as AutoHotkey will process it before the script actually starts running.
That's kind of funny, because I don't see it often, but I have occasionally seen people using the include, pound include, and they'll put it like at the bottom of the script, or
it can be anywhere,
in this place or that place. But the thing is that they point out that it's specifically at that point, at that place, like put it here.
Oh yeah, you don't have to. You can put them anywhere.
So I found that kind of weird, and then you saying that it executes that as soon as the script runs. It's nice to know that the single instance force doesn't have to be at the very top.
Right. But it also explains a lot, because in order, like, otherwise, how would AutoHotkey know that things need to be put in a certain place, right? And that's how it does. Is first, I guess it goes through your entire file and kind of lays out, like, hey, this is going to be a special area, and this is a special area because we're using the if, the directive if, pound if command.
For those that don't know, let's just go ahead and create a simple hotkey that uses it. Do you have an editor open right now?
Sure.
I'll pass it over to you, and because there's certain ones that I don't use a lot. Like, I typically use expressions with it. And I'll come back when we get to expressions, we'll come back to me. But the more common thing is if a specific window is active or something like that, and I'm pretty sure you know the syntax more than.
I'd have to find.
Actually, you know what? I think I'll do okay. I think I'll do okay. So
okay, yeah, just bear through it.
What we'll do is let me see if I can find the page, because there's a couple of them. There's a couple of different things. HK if when exist, when active. So I'll copy all the syntax that they have, and we'll have a look at them. So let's go through them one at a time. If when active. So if I have a hotkey set up with this when active, so what I'll do is, before any hotkeys that I want this to apply to, I'll set this before of those hotkeys, and I'll say, let's say Notepad. I think I have I have Notepad there, and I'll say number pad 1. So this is how you go about setting up the if directive, so that way things, your hotkeys and hotstrings are context sensitive. Before any hotkeys that you want to have them to be context sensitive, like you only want them to work when a specific program is running, you start with that line, and then when you're done, if you want to add more hotkeys, you can end it off with just an if. This will give you the ability to have other hotkeys afterwards, in which case I'll do here, number pad 1. Again, and this time I'll put up a tooltip that says not in Notepad. So if I run this now, because Notepad isn't running and it's not the active window, if I press number pad 1, what I should get is this hotkey executed here. So it says that it's not in Notepad. Right now, if I run Notepad, activate the window and press number pad 1 again, because it is active, I should get the context sensitive hotkey. No, I'm not. Let me do.
Try notepad.exe instead of
Yeah,
Well,
it's
actually,
I was
but
going to go to this. I was
the,
hoping that oh, you know what it is? I know what it is.
you need the HK
In this case,
underscore.
I would want to have the specific name or set title match to here I can do is it I don't know if I need a pound. Title match mode 2. Now this should work. I believe this should work. So what I've done is I've set the title match mode to be Notepad can be anywhere in the title. And I closed Notepad, didn't I? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so before, if I was doing it the way I had it, which I suggest most people don't do what I did here, where I'm just using the name. We'll go into the other ways
Yep.
that we can do it in a second. But if I had wanted it to work like this, I would have had to type untitled Notepad. But because I've set title match mode to be 2, as long as Notepad is anywhere within the title, it'll work. So now if I hit number pad 1, knock on wood, it should say that it's in Notepad.
So it's like a fuzzy match. Doesn't have to be an exact match.
Yeah, exactly.
Or an in string is a better.
So the better way for doing this would probably be to use the exe. You said.
That's what I use. Yeah. So I'd
Do
move
you
over
have to
left.
with that? Do you have to also do AHK?
Yes. Move over left.
Yeah, it's
AHK underscore exe. I think. Yeah. And then
Notepad exe.
I think you need the exe. I'm not 100% certain on it.
Well, we'll try with and without. So I've turned off the title match mode, so it's not going to be that. And if I find Notepad, number pad 1, and it worked. Okay, so let's try without the exe at the end. Now, Notepad, I believe, is part of the program files. Like it's in your program files directory, right?
I think that might be in one of the WinSys32.
Okay. Because I know that before, like with Run, for example, certain programs you can't just use its extension. Like I know that like Calculator, it's in the Win system or it's in the program files, so you don't need that.
It's the Windows. If the executable's in the Windows path,
yes,
I think that's when you don't need to have the extension.
Okay, yeah. So it's not program files, it's the Windows.
Well, there's the Windows path. It has like 8 or 10 different paths, right? Okay. And you can add to it as well. But yeah, it's not by default necessarily.
So yes, you do need, in this case, you do need the exe. You definitely need the exe.
Cool. Okay. Good to know.
So that's one way. The other way we can do it is with the process ID. Do you remember the?
No, I don't use that very often. Yeah.
I used to have a script. I don't think I have it. I had a problem with my computer back in the late spring, and I don't think I uploaded.
Well, interesting enough, that script that Maestrieth was helping with earlier, he was using, the active. He gets the ID and stores it, and then used it later. So we might be able to borrow from what he did.
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
The other way we can do it is using the class. So AutoHotkey, as long as you have a script running, you can just right-click on that script in the whatever hidden icons thing, and it should give you this thing to Windows Spy. So that gives you the AHK class and the exe, and we can use the class for Notepad.
Yeah, they happen to be the same. Well, actually, that one doesn't have the executable.
So now what we should be able to do is run that again and have the same thing happen.
And I believe you can use them in conjunction with each other as well. You don't have to use one or the other. You can use both.
How would you go about doing that? Like, I know how to do those things. They call the way that I usually write if statements, they call it expression, and then they have classic. But I started in C, and C is probably much older than a lot of the things that they're calling classic.
Yeah, I would just put it right next to after Notepad.
Like literally all in the same row?
Yeah. Yeah, and then if it didn't work, I'd throw a comma in between them.
Okay. So let me get that.
And the reason why I bring that up is sometimes you want to be very particular on where your hotkey gets a, like let's say Notepad was a little different. They had different GUIs you could be typing in, right? This would allow you to say not just the Notepad executable, but and also that class, even though this one obviously is Notepad, different programs share Windows classes, right? So if you just use the class,
that was one of my, when I first started with AutoHotkey, that was one of the issues that I had was I wasn't using the directive, but I was using like if when active.
Yep.
Just for whatever, if when active, send this key on its own within a hotkey, not using the pound directive. And if I had a web page open with that name as well as the other application, it would end up causing, I think it was whatever was running first, or the first, I don't know how it picked it, but it would always go to the web page instead of the actual application. So this is probably something that would work in that kind of case. That was, like I said, that was before I started using the AHK class, but in Notepad, not in Notepad. So that's that one out of the way. The next one is if the window exists. So it doesn't have to be active, it just has to exist. So since Notepad exists, it should say that it's in Notepad. Not much to dwell on that. Next is if when not active, so the opposite of it being active. So now, because I don't have Notepad active, it should say that it's in Notepad, and if I actually activate it, it should say that it's not in Notepad. If window doesn't exist. So this one, do you use any of these besides when active?
No, because you know it'd be. I guess it's possible I might change like my hotstring or hotkey based on a program is open, but usually I have to. I'm in it, right? That's what I want it to affect.
I wouldn't. Like I'm thinking, you know, I was thinking about running a program, right? I could use this if I want to have something that switches from either running it or switching between the window. So if it's like, if the program's running, activate it. If it is running and already active, minimize it.
Right, but those, I thought about that like a minute ago, and I was going to say it, and then
you can just do that inside the hotkey without the directive.
No, well, they're not directives, right? Because those you want to trigger it to launch something, and that's the when exists and when active. It's not the or maybe it's just the if without the pound sign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if when not active, yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just affecting like the hotkey and hotstring. You're not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I was thinking, would this be useful to do that kind of thing? And I was like, no. It's just easier just to create a normal hotkey and just do a little check. Is the window exist? If not, go ahead, run it. If it does exist and it's not active, minimize it or activate it or. Yeah, so if window doesn't exist, go ahead, pop. So because the window does exist, it's going to say that it's not in Notepad. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and now it should say in Notepad. Okay. Now, what I usually use this more often than not is actually using expressions. So with the expressions, it could be anything that I want. One thing I did note is that you can't, unlike a normal if statement, you can't. I'll check in a second, but you have to have a space between the brackets, the parentheses. In fact, you don't have to use the parentheses, but I'm not used to that syntax. So like I might have syntax that I'm not familiar with. So I usually prefer to put it into parentheses, and then I know that my expressions work properly. So let me give an example here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create another hotkey. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say tog equals not tog. So I'm just going to toggle the state between this variable toggle. And I'm going to say if toggle, or in other words, if toggle equals 1, then this hotkey will work. And I can control sets of hotkeys through another hotkey. So right now, because I just loaded the program and toggle hasn't been initiated with any value of 1 or whatever, if I hit number pad 1, it's going to give me this one down here. Because the toggle variable hasn't been activated yet, so it has a value of 0 or null. So it says not in Notepad. I know the not in Notepad isn't apply anymore, but I think that people will get the point that it's what we're doing. Now, if I hit number pad 2, I've toggled the state of that variable, so tog does equal 1. So now if I hit number pad 1 again, it's going to say in Notepad. And I can do this with sets of hotkeys and HotStrings. Let's do a hot string, because I don't use HotStrings like at all. I've used them. I've written a couple, but I almost never use them. Even after I wrote them, I almost never used them.
Yeah.
LOL. I'll just do it this way. The same thing. I won't have it change the. Actually, you know what? I will have it changed. I will have it type something. I guess I don't need that.
No, if you put up the next line, you're fine.
Yeah. And I'll do this again down here. I should have kept the old number pad 1 because I want to use that. Actually, no, I'm okay.
Yeah, but you want to change one of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm very creative.
Oh.
All right. So if I use this hot string LOL, it should be, because toggle hasn't been initiated, toggle equals 0 or null, it should give me Bob. It gives me Bob. If I toggle it with number pad 2 and type it again, I should get laugh. Let me see. Maybe it's. There we go. So same thing with your hot strings. I'm going to go back to doing hotkeys.
Well, can we do one more example on this? Because
sure.
To me, especially for people watching this, you're hitting a hotkey that they don't see, right? It's a little hard to follow directly.
So yeah, we can keep it in the hot strings.
Well, what I normally do with a context sensitive hot string is I look to see, like, if I'm in sight, right? Then when I type, and actually let me so I put it in the chat, but when I type R period, I replace it with a semicolon and then a bunch of asterisks.
Sorry. Okay. So R period. And you change it with what?
I do a semicolon first, so it'll comment out the line, and then a bunch of asterisks. It's basically a line break, right? But I'm yeah. And now let's make that if sight is the active. Okay.
So I get asked this all the time. The editor that I'm using, it's called Sight for AutoHotkey. This is what it's called. If you Google search that, you should find it. Actually, the best way to do it is probably go to the AutoHotkey forums, and then on their main page, they have a sub forum for editors. There's also Joe usually uses another one. It's called AutoHotkey Studio.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of editors that you can find on the AutoHotkey forum page.
Yep.
Okay, so there, and then if you don't have it, you do nothing, right?
Well, no, then we're going to change it to where we don't begin it with a semicolon.
Okay, okay.
So basically, if we're not in sight, hey, beginning something with a semicolon is an AutoHotkey thing, right? To comment out the line.
Yes.
But let's pretend like actually Notepad was SQL, and SQL is a dash to comment out the line.
Now, with using them all in the same line, there's a max characters about 40, is it?
Oh no, you can do tons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I remembered. Like I said, I don't use them a lot, but I thought I remembered before it saying something like 40.
You can also
40.
do a send repeat. You can just say, you can put the asterisk and then the curly brackets with the number of it, inside. That's all inside. But anyway, let's not worry about that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we have it set up so that way if site for AutoHotkey is active, if I type, now I'm not sure, is this case sensitive?
No.
Not by default? Okay.
Nope. Did you reload it?
Oh, maybe I didn't. Okay, no, I have an error somewhere. 7. Oh.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay, so R period. All right, now I'll go to Notepad. And this time.
So you type exactly the same thing, and yet it doesn't have a result. Yeah, and so that is one, because I don't want to. If I'm in, because I program in SPSS, in SQL, in HTML, Python, AutoHotkey, right? I don't want to have to remember how to comment out a line. So I have my main AutoHotkey script detecting what editor I'm in, and then I type the same damn thing, and yet it does this, and it puts the appropriate, beginning for me.
So like C, it would be like this. C, if I wanted to make a comment. So if I was in a C editor, then blah blah blah, and you have so you have multiple different hot strings that do the exact same thing except they comment themselves. I'm going to leave a link in the description to Joe's page, so anyone that does anything in C. Oh, my internet connection is unstable.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you were kind of a little bit.
I had a little message that said I was.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave a link in the description for Joe's page. Joe does all kinds of things like web scraping and SQL and whatever else he said he does. I have no idea about them. Yeah, so he has a bunch of videos on those. And he also does a monthly webinar on a variety of topics dealing with AutoHotkey. What was your last one? I seen it, but it didn't have, usually you have a title on what the
we
topic
didn't
was.
Actually, we were just troubleshooting stuff for people. Our next one is going to be on a recursive loop.
Recursive loop. Okay, I AutoHotkey, I've had some problems with recursion. Where I did a game, a Minecraft game, about a year or two ago, and when it would do the opening up all the empty spaces, it would get about 100 spaces or 200 spaces, and then it would crash. So I probably just had a bug in my recursion, but if it was like 85, 86, it did it no problem. If it was like 185, it would crash.
Hey,
so I don't know.
Let's add one more, because I want to make sure people understand if they're doing multiples of these. Let's copy line 24, actually line 24 and 26, because we'll borrow both.
Okay.
And put them right after like 20, where 27 is. No, up above that. There you go.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right there.
Gotcha.
Now let's change the class to something else, and some sort of an editor or something you can type text in.
Notepad. That's what I got.
Yeah, but do we have a third one?
I don't have a third editor.
Well, we can just use this will work, and we'll use like Internet Explorer or something because you can. It won't be Notepad, right? And you can type
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
URL
Okay.
thing,
Let me see. Let me
and
see.
then.
See.
So, and actually, we don't even have to test it, right? I just wanted to give this example of you don't have to close out like line 32. You don't actually have to put that after line 26,
Yes.
right?
It's only where you want to have things that are done. You're finished with the context sensitive.
Well,
Yeah.
but the point is the 28 will end everything between 24 to 27 when it runs into 28,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to close out each section, right?
Yes.
So you
In
only needed that bottom 32 once, right? You only need the pound if to stop being context sensitive once. You don't have to do it after every individual thing. But this is how you can have multiple of them, right? So, and for me, I have it for
So you're
Python.
okay. So okay. Yes. Yeah. I got what you're saying. I got what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it just saves an extra line, right? But it, why don't in the middle of each of the asterisks, why don't you put like Notepad and then Cite and then something else?
So you can have as many as you want. So you can, if you want to do, you can use the same hot string for Cite, for Notepad, for C sharp. What is it? Notepad plus plus,
Yeah, SQL.
HK Studio,
Yeah, you name it.
Google Chrome,
Right.
Firefox, whatever,
Whatever. Yeah.
and use the same one. And depending on which program you have running, and using it, if the window exists, perhaps if the window is not active, if window doesn't exist, and just change the context sensitivity. How would it work if? Do you know about? Does it follow the order that it's in? Like what if it can, if the hotkey can be run for both?
It doesn't matter, right? Because you're telling it that is everything between line 24 and 28 is for Cite. Everything between line 28 and 32 is for Notepad, right? So you can have the same. That's one of the things. Actually, it's a really good. I'm glad you brought that up, because HotStrings you can have exactly the same thing in AutoHotkey will not error, right? Regardless of whether you're using the if directives or not. Now, if you have more than one hotkey identical, AutoHotkey will not launch that script, right? But you
I
didn't
did
run
not.
into.
I did not know that about hot strings. So what does it do? Does it do the first one or the last
I
one?
think it does the last one that it encounters.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It
No, no,
overwrites.
no. What I was asking before was, let's say if let's say if I move this, I'm gonna duplicate this. Let me create a scenario. So instead of when active, let's say I was doing.
I have no idea how it's going to do anything with what you're doing.
I'm trying to set it so that way it can be true for two of the things. Like both of these, this would be true for both. If when exists, right? And so what I'm.
No, I get what you're doing. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to which one we'll
Do I
choose.
have the right order? If window exists. Yeah, I think this is a good enough test. So here, it potentially can be both of these are true.
Right.
But which one is it going to do?
Yeah, I would guess the latter.
Site not active. So it did
No.
the first one.
No. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now I would,
And
yeah, move it.
I don't think many people would have a case where
Right.
both would be true, but
What I'm curious is what happens, can you do a hotkey? Will it run with a hotkey? Because I know it'll take HotStrings, and it applies it. But what if you have duplicate hotkeys, and how would it? I don't think it should run. Oh, so what's
sure I
it
don't
going
have
to
an
do?
error. Okay.
No.
So it's doing the first one. Yeah, and
Interesting.
if I switch to another window, it'll do the second one.
Because it's not active.
All right. So I don't think most people will ever have a situation where the statement is true for two things, but who knows? Something to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's the first one. It's the first truth that it encounters.
You're back to cutting out a little here.
Oh. I'm getting my internet connection is unstable again.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that pardon? Seem to be frozen. Okay.
I'm good.
I can't see you moving at all.
Oh.
Okay, there we go. Now we go. Now we're good. Okay, so what I was saying is I think we've covered. Do you have anything else?
No, the only thing which I don't know if you want to cover it, but
yes.
The other thing they're not directives, but I will look to see what the name of the computer is. So or what the name of the user that's logged in is, and I will use that to also dictate what gets sent.
So using an expression using the user.
Well, if computer.
So let me see if I have it. How do you get the users?
Well, there's some built-in variables. So
okay.
What is it? A underscore is what almost everything starts with.
A underscore user.
Well, you can try user. I haven't written one in quite a while, so just try it. See if it. Yeah, username. There you go. So that equals, and then then you can have, if you have different people using the computer, right? Here's a great easy way. Actually, you came up on one of the webinars a while ago. Someone said, "Hey, my wife, I love all this stuff, but my wife hates it, and so she'll come up and how do I have to disable all my stuff?" And we're like, "Well, you could make them context sensitive, right? So they're running, and then it just depends on who's logged in, right? And the things you want."
So what probably their best way to do it is create a dummy script and use this to see what the actual user says, so that way they can plan a script out with that information.
Well, you could do a message box, actually right now, I don't know if you want to do that.
Well, yeah, I usually use tooltip, but yeah, message box,
okay,
tooltip.
Yeah. Or, and again, the computer name is the other one, because that's where, when I had, my work computer and home computer, and they were very similar, but there were subtle differences. I wanted my same master file to work on both computers. And so I used the computer name to tell me which one was. Hellbent. Yeah, cool.
So right now it should, because the username it does equal me, it should give me, if I type r dot, it should say site, and that's what we have.
When I was at in corporate office, I had these 3 different ladies from Japan that wanted something similar to be, but a little bit different for each one. But I didn't want to maintain 3 different files, and so I used this to look at the username to do slightly different things on each of their computers, and yet I didn't have to keep track of all the different files, right?
Yeah, that's good idea. That's a good idea. How do you normally write? Do you usually use the parentheses, or is there any
I
syntax
do.
difference that you need to use?
I do my best to always use the parens. It helps me
Likewise,
think
likewise.
clearly.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
I always know, like same with if statements. I never do if some, what is it? Like it'll be like a variable first and then any other variables afterwards. I have to put in percent marks, and so yeah, I just don't, I don't like, let's say if I had a variable called temp, it would be fine there. But if I want to do, see, I don't even know if you can do ampersands, or do you have to type and? I don't know. I never
You
do. I
can,
never, right?
yeah, two
Ampersands.
ampersands, and then the pipes are the or, right? Two pipes are.
Yeah, yeah. So
But I'm with you. I
but
don't.
now, as far as I know, in order for me to do this, I have to, if I want to do temp again, for example, or another variable, I would have to put the second time inside of percent marks.
No.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
All right.
Yeah, that would be
Well,
completely different, uses of in one line. That, yeah, I don't. The only thing I know that does stuff like that is if you do, you put the 1% thing at the beginning, and then you just don't use any more percents through the rest of it. That's the only thing for me that people get confused on.
yeah. Yeah. Well, anyways, that's a different topic. Like you, I always use parentheses if I can, because then I
Yeah.
know that what's supposed to be what. Variables don't need anything done to them. Literal text needs quotes. Very easy to understand for me.
And I thought you usually use the double equals just because you were used to it.
Double equals. I don't use that as much anymore because
Oh, okay.
I picked that up from C and
Right.
C and a bunch of other languages. You
Yeah.
use double equals, or
Yeah. And
sometimes it's even triple equals, right? Because you're trying to do a comparison. You're not
yeah.
defining it.
Right.
Whereas in AutoHotkey, it's if you're doing case sensitive, you do the double equals. In cases where there's, it doesn't matter, like for example numbers or whatever, or something else that literally it doesn't matter if it's uppercase or not, or if it's case sensitive or not, then you can use it without any issues. But if I was to do something like this with the double equals, this probably isn't going to work now.
Right.
I don't know why it does that. Let me see. Number pad 1. Oh, no, it's R. So this site not, no, it's gonna give me, I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, site not active, because it's not this one here. It's this one.
Right.
But that's using the double equals. I have an example of where, like I said, I don't use hotkeys a lot and I don't use HotStrings a lot, but occasionally I'll have something where I want to do it where I'm checking the value of a variable, just like this, and I'll use like a GUI to do that. So let me see if I have something. Which one? What's the
You mean
last
to
one?
display the results, or do you mean?
No, it's okay. So I know that this one uses it. Actually, this one here does as well. But so what I have in the script somewhere, if I can find it, is the L button. So I want to use the L button as a hotkey sometimes, only when a value of a variable has a certain value. So if I hit set position, that switches that value to be 1, which means that this is now true, and L button doesn't work as a normal, it works as a hotkey now. So its normal functionality is turned off. So if I hit set position, now I can't accidentally click on anything while I'm doing this.
Oh.
But this is the typical thing that I'll use, where I'll just use a GUI to set a value of a variable and then do that. Or perhaps a checkbox. I'll have a checkbox to turn on and off hotkeys. So I can turn on and off any hotkeys that I want just by swapping a value of a variable.
And just to clarify, if people aren't used to it, on line 235, right, if if active draw didn't have anything in it, then it wouldn't, it was a 0 or no value, no data in the variable, then it
Yeah,
wouldn't work.
this is what I was talking about before when I had that toggle where I said this is equivalent to this. It means the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It means the exact same
Well,
thing.
actually, I don't know if it means the exact same, because
No, no,
active
no.
draw,
Yes.
yeah, could have any,
Like
it just exists.
it's equivalent. This could be any number greater than
Yes.
one.
There you go.
One or greater. One or
Right.
greater.
Yeah.
If it's
But
0 or less.
yeah, if you say the not, right, if you throw the not in front of it, then it's a little more specific, right, where it does equal to 0.
Yeah. So once I do the clicking on this, the last thing it does before it exits is it sets the value to 0, so that way this doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So up here I can hit number pad 1. Oh, I have that going for that other script, don't I? If tut clipboard master exit. Okay. So now if I hit number pad 1, no, do I have it turned off or something? I don't know. Why isn't that working? I'm baffled. I am truly baffled. Oh, wait, no. You know what? I ended up using this for something else. That's why. Let me change that to number pad 2. All right. It doesn't matter. That isn't even the point I was trying to do. Oh, this isn't even the same script. It's the same idea. It's this one. It's the exact same idea. I press a button, and that turns off the L button, so I can draw.
Cool.
I was thinking. I wasn't even looking at the right script.
Right.
But yeah, that's typically where I'll do it. Whereas most things that I see, it's if the window is active or not.
Yeah.
I think as far as I know, that pretty much covers it. Unless you can think of something.
No, I think it's a good intro to it and concisely summarize that area without going into other. There's a lot of other directives, but there's way too many, and we don't need to cover that.
Yeah, just the if mainly. So as we've seen, the first one that rings true is the one that gets done. If you want to have hotkeys after it, just make sure you include an if. I think if when active, you could also use if when active. I'm not positive.
Well, I think you'd want it to end what you started. Like, so for that, you'd want the if when exists. Would be my guess.
No. You can. I know for sure. I know for sure that you can use this. Like if I turn this off. Wait, what do I want? HK class. Let's say Notepad. I don't have Notepad running anymore. Notepad. If one exists, I'm gonna clear up some of the clutter. Because it's getting hard for me to see. Okay. So right now it's set so that way if the window exists, AHK class Notepad, it'll type out this. If it doesn't exist, I'm saying that if it doesn't exist, it's going to type out this because I'm using this if to end the direct if context sensitive hotkeys.
Yeah, and yeah, we demonstrated this earlier.
Yeah.
But I thought you said on line 14 you could use if when active there, and that's what I was saying was I think you need to match what's on line 11.
No. Actually, what I was trying to say was I think I can just use. I'm not sure if I can, but I think I can just use this. Oops.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
On the same
yeah.
page.
I think I can. But for me, if I'm going through my script, I find this to be a little bit more clear on what I mean.
You find this to be?
Yeah, I find this just using if on its own
Okay.
without if when active or if when exists. I find it a little bit more clear than having if when exist on
Uh-huh.
its own.
Yeah, for me, I like it the other way. It I feel like I'm closing out the same thing I started, but
But they are equivalent. Yeah, they are equivalent. So however anyone wants to do it, that's how they can do it. But this should be without the site in it. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers everything.
Cool.
And you can have hundreds of hotkeys within any one of these things. You can have hundreds of hotkeys, HotStrings, switch them between it. You can use a hotkey to actually turn on and off sets of hotkeys. You can use a GUI button or checkbox or whatever to turn on and off different sets, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but you can use hotkeys to send text like a hot string, and you can use hot strings to trigger, like a hotkey would. They're actually interchangeable. Generally speaking, people don't do that, right? Use a hotkey to launch or change something to cause an event, and a hot string is sending text. But you can. I have my 5 hot numbers that I do. Alt 1, Alt 2, Alt 3, Alt 4, Alt 5 are all passwords for me. So I don't want to have to type them out and remember my hot string for them. I can just hold down Alt and hit whatever number, and it will send that password to whatever window I'm in. So it's those I use all day.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So you have all them set up as context sensitive, and depending on which application you're in.
No,
That's not what you mean.
no. I'm just saying I have 5 different main passwords I use, and if I hit Alt 1, it'll send my first password. If I hit Alt 2, it'll send the second one, no matter what window I'm in. Right?
Okay.
Because sometimes I'm in Chrome, sometimes I'm in IE, sometimes I'm in Firefox or whatever. Right? I didn't want it. I don't know ahead of time of which one would be where, so that's why I didn't do that. But I'm just saying it's nice because I don't have to type out password or something, right? It's
yes. It's just
it
a hotkey.
sends text, but you can send paragraphs, right? You can send I think the default is like 16,000 something characters for without doing some extra hoops. You can add to that if you want.
I typically find it easier. Like I don't use hotkeys or hot strings very often, but I do find it when I do use it. Because I haven't invested much time in the hot strings. I would probably go the route of hotkeys as well, because I'm never going to remember what the hot string I have for my passwords.
Well,
have a hard enough time remember.
Right. Yeah, and like for me, because I used to have a lot, and I got to the point where I was forgetting them, and so I had to actually go back and restart and create patterns. And so I basically use people's initials after in an E and then a period for their email address. So like mine, actually, I don't do mine that way because I have a dozen email addresses for myself. But for my wife, it's CG period. I'm sorry, CGE. E for email, right? Period, and then that'll dump in her email address, no matter what window I'm in. And so that way, I have dozens of people's email addresses at the tip of my fingers, and I just have to remember their initials, right?
And over time, you get used to it.
You do, and then the HTML stuff I do, right? So, like, I can type BD period, and it will wrap it'll insert the bold HTML tags and then move my cursor over, which I don't know if you want to do a simple one real quickly. Why don't you?
Sure. Do you want to take over?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Let me figure out how to stop share. All right.
Okay. I was
Yeah,
just
you
I
got
thought you were gonna give me control of your computer.
Oh,
There's no problem. Let me launch something here, and I'll start sharing. There. And even though Hellbent was correct, I use AutoHotkey Studio pretty much exclusive now. I use Sight for like 7 years. I love it. It's a great tool. But let's say
Studio has a lot more functionality.
it does, and it helps with some really cool stuff. But Sight has the fundamentals.
So people, if you are the type of person that likes using hot strings and hotkeys, you're probably the kind of person that can remember all the different commands that these kind of editors can do. Studio is probably the thing to invest your time on learning. Then, me, I can't remember it. Like I use nothing, none of the features of. The only thing I use on Sight for AutoHotkey is the autocomplete and the play button. That's it.
That's funny. It's funny because Jackie, we do a lot of work together, and he also doesn't use hotkeys or hot strings, and yet he's an avid AHK fan, and I can't. I mean, you can see in here. So these, by the way, this is my stuff for my passwords, right? So I don't actually store the password in my script. So if somebody gets my script, they don't get my passwords. I store them in a file on my computer that is nowhere that I actually have under Dropbox, and it reads it in, sends it, and then clears it out from memory. So I like a little more security over it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good idea.
But I was going to see. Let me find my. There we go. So I'll borrow this. Actually, I'll just do it here, right? So this in the O in between the first two colons says, "Hey, don't add the extra space after I type." But then when I type BD period, it's going to put in the word strong, and then the open tag, the close tag, and then this left line.
It's going to move your caret. You're going to move your caret over in between them.
Yeah, nice. So I can be typing and I can say, "Oh, I want something bold," and see how it drops me exactly between my tags where I want to be.
That's very nice.
It is when you're doing a lot of HTML. It's really helpful. Yeah. I have another one.
Pretty much anything. Like if you're using if you have your own library of functions in your library, you can have it. Yeah. I don't know, some shortcuts to your different functions.
Oh no, I do. Sure. Like my like that is my my default. And actually, what's funny, because the beginning when we started this video, you mentioned we made a video a while back, and I had tried to demo. You had asked me.
I remember you had something. Yeah. I remember something about it. I don't remember if it was the reload or.
I went back into my template though, and I realized my template at the time. But let me pull it up, so I'll just because it was nesting objects under each other. When we were trying it wasn't working. It's because I didn't declare in that one. I didn't declare the object first, and so I realized that wasn't in my, because like if I start off up top here. This is my hot string to giving my defaults, hotkeys that I use, and then my global object. Well, that was always there. So in my template, I didn't have that because that's in my template, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I realized that's what it took me. I'm like, what in the world? I know I use this all the time and it works. And I finally realized that this line wasn't in my template to bring up this loop, and it didn't catch it because this is always up here. And so,
yeah, but in the case in the example we were working on, it wasn't.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I have dozens of examples of hot strings, that I can pull up that for AutoHotkey code, for HTML, for email addresses.
Do you have something that you can pull up that shows an example of using the if directive or context sensitive?
Well, those were some right at the top there. Let's find that. Oh, there's one right there. Oh, damn.
If when active, there you go.
Stats is SPSS, right? So if I hit Control Alt C, it'll do something different in SPSS versus if I was in a different tool. That's what that one is. I know I have a bunch. I have all the other ones with the different. That was one that I turned off for business objects. So here's one for Systat for another version of SPSS. That's another version of it. So this is how I mentioned this will send a 30 asterisks, right? So it'll start off with the slash, then send 30 asterisks, and then move 20 to the left. That makes sense?
Yeah. Why 20 though? Why not 15?
It doesn't. Yeah, no real answer. Like this, I think because often I type a lot, and then I want it more in the middle. So
okay.
You know what I mean? It's still, you're right. I'll have more on this side, but yeah, there's no great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen somebody actually. They did a script up on the forum a couple of weeks ago. They made it a little bit more complicated than it needed to. They had like a graphical user interface and everything, but it was basically to make those comments like that. So I sent them a copy of one where all you have to do is just highlight some text, press a hotkey, and it'll copy it into the clipboard and put it into the middle. So you just press a hotkey and it does everything for you.
Yep.
You don't even have to type anything. You just type it out normally, highlight it, press a hotkey, and it.
Cool. Yeah, actually, I don't know if this one works right now, but I can highlight stuff and hit Windows C. I think last time I checked it was, oh no, it still didn't work because there's no custom URL. That should paste it to the clip bin, the paste bin, which is what I thought before we started recording. We were talking about it, and I thought that was what you.
That's a different paste bin though, right?
Yeah, it is. Yes. Yeah, you want the Imager one. Yeah.
No. I'm talking about like because there's the pastebin.com site.
Oh, this is the AutoHotkey paste bin.
Okay, yeah.
There's a special one that someone created and maintains, and so. But like I said, I didn't see the custom URL, so.
I'll definitely get that code off you sometime soon to get onto that.
Yep.
Do I need anything special to use that?
You need
the HK.
No. You need to create a Imager account, but that's about it. And then you get your token when you create your account, and then it's easy peasy.
No, I mean for this pastebin, AHK pastebin.
Oh, yeah. No, it also is very generic. I need to look at why this, for some reason, isn't running. Something changed. I'll ask. Maestrith was the one I borrowed this from, so I'll ask him why if there's something weird going on with it.
Because I am used to using pastebin.com, but sometimes it could be convenient just to be able to just
it's awesome.
Literally just put it in my clipboard and paste it.
Yeah. Him and I will be doing work, and he'll have a lot of text, and he's like, "Oh, you know what? Hold on here. All right, now go click this link, and I can get 2,000 lines of code." Right? It's super easy.
So you have a lot of tools that you've created over time, and you have most of them on your site. What is it? The automator.com or?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say most. I have most of the stuff that's generic, right? But
No, the ones that you release to people or whatever, free, open to the public.
Sure. Yeah, and it's not like I'm trying to keep my stuff private. It's just my stuff is so specific. It's just not going to be helpful, right?
Yeah.
No,
because I'm saying I'll leave a link into your site in the video's description, so people can go check out what you have on your site.
Real quickly, just because we're talking about it. All the webinars are here, and we have, I think, 30 now. We actually started doing podcasts. Jackie and I are doing podcasts, so we talk through stuff. This is for API, and API calls are amazing. They're really powerful. And so
I know nothing about them yet. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
It depends on your need, right? But a lot of times vendors have tools you can connect to programmatically and query and get data out of super easily.
Well, that's why I was asking you if I could pick apart your clipping tool, because you have interacting with the API, and that's the word I was looking for that I couldn't
Well, that's a different
say.
API. Yeah,
API.
that's the Windows.
But
or
it does show an example of using a API, whereas I have absolutely no experience using any API.
Well, it's a good like everything we use is almost an API, right? It's a Windows has APIs. That's a lot of.
Doesn't AutoHotkey interact with the Windows API?
Yes, absolutely right.
But
now,
a lot of that's built into the syntax.
Yeah, to the tool itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But these APIs, these are web service APIs, right? And this is, generally speaking, it's a something online like Google services or Yelp or whatever that you can query, and you're basically connecting to a server somewhere else, not on your computer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what when I'm calling API calls, because you're right, they're both API calls, right? And you know what? A browser is an API call when it loads a web page. So it's confusing, but these are specific that usually you're connecting to different services. And I have examples here of where I've connected them. Actually, the Google one, I do like 6 or so, or there's 4 different ones. Yeah, there's lots of good examples of APIs, and I actually, I probably haven't even added them on here. But I've added a lot more. I have an entire folder stuffed with examples of connecting to APIs that are just different services, right? These are all different services that I've connected to and used, and they're.
Have you gotten pretty used to being able to read their documentation and knowing what they're supposed to do with it?
They're all different is the problem. Yeah, that's one of the fun parts. And honestly, their documentation, which I shouldn't say that, the actual query itself usually isn't that hard. It's the OAuth connection, the security, where you gotta connect to it and give them something, and they pass back a token, and then you pass something back again. That is done differently on every site also, and it can be much more complex than the actual querying of their service. That's where usually my headache is. And then I also talk about web scraping, connecting to Excel. I have a bunch of videos on customizing Zeit, because like I said, I used to use it for everything, and it was amazing. And then under AutoHotkey, under here, I guess I can't click it, but I have a lot of videos on functions, regular expressions, and then Outlook. The IE, I think, is still the web. Same thing.
Yeah, you do a lot of the web scraping stuff.
I do. And honestly, I've made some pretty good money doing it too. So it's a great skill set to have. And I highly encourage people to have it in your toolbox of something you know how to do. Right, it opens up a lot.
I've done one script, and I wouldn't even. I don't know if you would call it even web scraping. I've interacted with a web page. One script.
That's fine. Yeah.
One script. That's it. That's all I've ever needed. One script, and it wasn't even for me. It was for a friend.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for that friend that needed it, I would never have done it.
A lot of people, especially those that work on a computer all day, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't. I watch YouTube videos.
Yeah. They'll go to websites and have to get data and then have to come and save it in Excel, or vice versa. They have to go fill out forms. They have to take their data and stuff it into a form, right? All of that can be done with web scraping. And that's actually so. I have one project that I'm doing now. It's for the year, but I'm getting paid $20,000, right, for doing it. And so every month I run some code, and I'm making some good money on that. It didn't take me that long to write the initial code. It took me a while, but nothing like it. I'm getting paid for it. And I'm doing this other project for someone else of scraping data. We're actually working a trade on something else for that. But you can make some good money doing it.
So yeah, everyone, if you want to learn web scraping, Joe is your guy.
No, well, I have a lot of tutorials, right?
Yeah, so Joe is your guy.
It's if you've never done anything with a web page and don't understand the DOM, which is the document object model, it's steep learning, right? So don't get me wrong, but it's a great skill set to have. Great one.
wasn't that for I had was under the impression that that was for like whatchamacallit, Chrome, and
Well,
COM was IE. So what's the difference
well,
between COM and DOM?
COM, which actually happens to be here also, right, is the component object model, which is a Microsoft backbone, which a lot of other software, like actually SPSS, is not a Microsoft product, but they have a COM interface that you can programmatically connect to. Same as, and almost all Microsoft products have it. So like Excel and IE, which is what you mentioned a second ago, Word, all those, you can programmatically, instead of sending keystrokes and trying to do stuff, you can
Yeah, that's
programmatically do exactly what you want, and it's so much more reliable and fast. It's blinding.
that's basically what I did. I posted stuff to. They wanted a script that would automatically post something to a classified site every couple of hours.
Oh, I think we talked about that.
Yeah, we did. We did. I asked you there because there was the one thing where it has to select a file or an image to go with it, and then the script would stall at that point. And
Oh,
I
that's
said,
right. I remember now.
this is how I worked around it.
Yeah,
Do you know a better way?" And you said, "No, that's pretty much how you do it."
yeah, it sucks, but yeah. And then the DOM is, think of the DOM as the map to your web page. So it tells, you can go in and you can see where things are. It's how you would say, I don't want to scrape all the page. I want this text, right? Or I want this, or I want to click that, right? It's how a web page is built and how things are laid out and how you would know exactly what the pieces you want to get where.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. A lot of fun, a lot of heartache, but great skill set to develop.
Hopefully, I'll have a reason to do it because that's when I pick up things the best. When I have a need.
Absolutely, I
and
think
I have to
everybody's
go
that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One of the things that are it's good that I have this skill, but it's also very bad. Is I'm usually pretty self-reliant. Like I can usually figure things out. I can usually come
Yeah.
up with a hacky, even if it's a hacky way. There's not too often that I get stuck on a problem.
Yeah.
For long-term learning, it's probably better if I wasn't good at that.
Right. Well, for growth, right?
Yeah, for
I think
growth, right? Because there's very seldom that I have to
yeah.
go and look up something, or I can usually with a handful of commands and some logic work my way through all the different problems.
And that's how I was forever. And then now I'll often ask. I have friends at work specialize in different areas, right? And then I'll be like, hey, you know what? Have you tried to do this yet? And if they have, I'll have them give me a 20-minute review. And it's like, wow, I can learn. Like actually today with Maestriath, we were doing something, and I learned a lot. Some really good stuff that I'm like, wow, I need to go actually note that because I might forget it. I need a hotkey or a hot string, right, or my GUI so I can pull it up. I'll remember I did it. I just don't remember where I saved it.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I'm starting to. I just reinstalled Windows back in, I don't know, May, June, and I lost thousands and thousands of scripts.
ouch.
But I'm already getting to the point again where organization is becoming a problem, where there's so many scripts every day. Every time I'm on it, I'm creating a new script. I'll go to the forum and I'll help out in the ask for help, and I'll create a temporary script, but I never end up deleting it. So I have like a million scripts from the forums helping out people, and
yeah.
Yeah.
I work very, like, everything under here are different, folders for projects. And then under here, it's all different, so thankfully I know how my brain is organized. And so I take a little bit of time up front to store a folder somewhere where at least topically, it's going to make sense. Because, it just gets wild with how much, information, how many different things I would have, right? There's no way I can keep track of anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's, I think we're good on this, right?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for watching. If you guys have any ideas for future tutorials that you'd like to see Joe back for, or for me to go over to Joe's channel to do, or just any topics at all, For questions, I do usually try to answer questions in the comments, but sometimes I can't. So your best bet is always to go to the forums first. You can ask, but I might not answer. But that's it. Thank you for
Yeah,
watching.
awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Joe.